Hello. So, to better understand the problems and describe the solutions for the climate crisis we're facing, which is going to be the topic for our final project for this unit and this whole year, we need to first have a solid understanding of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases in general. So, today we will look at what greenhouse gases are and how much of the Earth's atmosphere is made of greenhouse gases, as well as how the greenhouse effect works. There will be a Next ticket Google form for you to complete at the end of the lesson today so we can check our understanding. For our second do now, please watch the 3-minute YouTube video linked in your note catcher. The narrator talks a bit fast, so I would recommend changing the playback speed by clicking on this gear icon and choosing 0.75. And then turn on closed captioning to help us follow along easier. After you're done, please answer the following questions in your note catcher. Are greenhouse gases good or bad, or both, and why? Describe how greenhouse gases work using the pinball game analogy. So go ahead and press pause on this learning launch video. Watch the YouTube video in your note catcher, answer the questions, and then follow the directions of the substitute teacher before you come back to this learning launch video. So just to stamp our learning here for those two questions in the do now. Hopefully we have determined that greenhouse gases are both good and bad. We need greenhouse gases in order to maintain biodiversity of life on Earth. Without these gases to maintain the normal temperatures, our temperature will fluctuate as wildly as they do on the moon. However, too many greenhouse gases can trap too much heat, which can also lead to a decrease in biodiversity. These greenhouse gases help trap the heat before it leaves the atmosphere and re-radiate the heat back down to the troposphere, which is the layer closest to the Earth's surface, this layer right here. However, even though this is a good thing, but in like the pinball game the video showed us, when there are too many greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, it could mean that there are too many obstacles for the heat to get bounced back, reflected off into space. So the pinball represents heat from the Earth, the rays of heat from from the sun, sorry. And then the bars here are kind of like the greenhouse gases that would be trapping the heat back down on Earth. So when that happens, that is what causes global climate change. To appreciate the strength of greenhouse gases, let's take a look at these pie charts. The pie chart at the top here shows all of the gases that make up our atmosphere and their respective percentages. The smaller pie chart at the bottom here is what we see when we zoom into this tiny fragment of the top pie chart. Take a closer look at these two pie charts and type in your note catcher, what do you notice? And then what do you wonder about what you're noticing here? So pause the video and go ahead and answer in your note catcher. Hopefully you have pair shared your responses with each other and with the whole class. And that we recognize that the vast majority of the Earth's atmosphere is made of, first of all, nitrogen gas, which is not a greenhouse gas, as well as, and then that would be 78.9%, and then 20.95% would be made up of oxygen, which is the gas that we breathe in and that support life. 0.93% would be the argon gas. A mixture of trace gases account for the other 0.03%. And greenhouse gases make up only a fraction of this remaining 1%. And I want to highlight this so that we can understand just how powerful these greenhouse gases can be. Even though they make up the smallest percentage of our atmosphere, they are the major players in keeping the radiant heat inside the Earth, and that heat is very necessary to make life on Earth possible. Without these 0.03% gases, our planet would be inhabitable with no living things, and Earth would be similar to the moon. We would not be protected from the extreme weather conditions like those on the moon without our greenhouse gases. And their strength should also tell you that a little does go a long way. So when these greenhouse gases increase even by a small amount, it makes for a huge impact on our global climate. So what are our greenhouse gases? Here's a list of all the greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gases listed in green here, these are naturally occurring gases in the atmosphere. So what they have in common, so that you can fill out in your note catcher, is that they are all naturally occurring greenhouse gases. Nature, these are the greenhouse gases that Mother Nature has intended to help us to maintain life on Earth so that we don't have the conditions like on the moon. The gases listed in the purple here indicate gases that are formed from human sources. If you recall from our discussions on smog, tropospheric ozone is the secondary air pollutant that forms from the interaction of sunlight, particularly UV light, with hydrocarbons and nitrogen oxides, NOx, which are emitted by cars' tailpipes and smokestacks. Chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, and hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs, these are primarily produced for use in refrigeration, air conditioning, and they play a major role in depleting the ozone layer in the atmosphere when they are higher up there. When these gases are in the troposphere, though, which is closer to the Earth's surface, they can act as greenhouse gases. Even though the gases listed in green can occur naturally here, there are human related activities that do increase their concentration, as we will see in just a bit later. As you will recall from the video in the Do Now, UV light first enters the Earth's atmosphere from the sun. Most of this light is filtered through the ozone layer um, on the upper part of the atmosphere. Um, and the solar radiation that does make it into the troposphere, which is the lowest layer of the atmosphere, is typically in the form of visible light that enables us to see anything. Some of this light is reflected back into space as heat. The more reflective a surface is, the more heat that will be reflected in a process called albedo, which we will discuss more in the days to come. Greenhouse gases are responsible for reflecting and re radiating the heat back to Earth. So, some of the visible light would be bouncing off the greenhouse gases in our troposphere here and re radiate back to Earth. And this process is called the greenhouse effect. These gases can and do occur naturally, as you can see here, N2O, CO2, CH4, which is methane, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides. They do and can occur naturally to preserve our moderate climate here on Earth. However, when human activities, as you can see, our cars and fossil fuel plants emit too many of the gases in the atmosphere, the heat may not be able to re radiate back out to space quickly enough, and that will raise the global temperature, just like we saw in the pinball game analogy. Take a moment to recap in your note catcher. Why is the natural greenhouse effect beneficial to life on Earth? And number two, the current greenhouse effect caused by human is now hurting Earth. So how so? What happens when there are too many greenhouse gases? Why is that a problem? After we recap, we will pause our lesson here for today and we'll continue the rest of your note catcher next time. But before you leave, you do need to complete the exit ticket Google form to check your understanding for today. Thank you for listening.